All right, welcome to the Sunday Quarterback. For the first time, we can actually talk about a win. Let's break this down. First of all, we got to start with Scott Frost. Man, did he just seem relieved and overjoyed. This one was a long time coming.
Well, everybody was. But, yeah, you start with Scott Frost, just the pressure of him coming back home, kind of being the savior, the Jim Harbaugh type hire for Nebraska in a lot of ways, where he was going to make an immediate impact. And they had their worst start in over 128 years of football at Nebraska. So the pressure was mounting, and this was another coin flip game, and they made it not even close. And I think that was the most impressive thing. Not only was it supposed to be an evenly matched game, Nebraska was able to blow Minnesota out here down the stretch.
And they finished the game.
And I think they learned, and that was my talking point after the game with a lot of the coaches and players. Last week, they kind of coached with the fear of failure to finish that game against Northwestern. There was no fear of failure. Scott Frost was dialing up pass plays of Stanley Morgan. Dedrick Young and the defense comes up with a big turnover when their back was against the wall. So just the learning lessons they've had this season, particularly the way last week's game ended, I think ultimately played a big part in how this team finished.
And Scott Frost gets the game ball from Eric Chenander, but you could name a couple of guys who deserve game balls, Adrian Martinez in particular.
25 of 29 passing, over 100 yards rushing. It's his fourth conference game, Andy Kendeigh, with over 400 yards of total offense. So we just talked about this earlier. He's almost gone unnoticed because of Nebraska's record. The Big Ten comes out with Freshmen of the Week, Players of the Week, and you really can't win those awards if you don't win.
Right.
And there have been weeks where Martinez has probably been the Freshman of the Week in this conference, but he doesn't get any accolades because of the record. I would say this week, if he's not the Freshman of the Week, I want to know who the hell is.
That's right. Nebraska doesn't even nominate guys a lot of times during these losses because they don't feel like the kids deserve it unless they win a game. And so that's good on them. And good on Devine Ozigbo. 150 yards for the third time in the last 4 weeks.
Yeah, Devine Ozigbo is a senior that's running determined, and he's going to have a real shot at 1,000 yards. I mean, they have 5 games left. He's over 600 yards or in that area now. So he's got to just get 400 rushing yards over the last 5, and he would be Nebraska's first 1,000-yard back since Amir Abdullah.
That is pretty amazing when you think about it. They had 3 guys go over 100 with Martinez, Ozigbo, and Maurice Washington, who had his best day. Kid? That guy's electric.
Yeah, just some of the things he gives them when you have that combination of Martinez and Ozigbo. When you sprinkle in Washington, it's just a whole other element. And Martinez makes it so hard because you can't just take away one thing and expect the other thing not to be as good. His passing, his running, everything he does is at a high level, and I think from a defensive coordinator standpoint, I would hate to scheme against a guy like that.
And you would hate to try to stop Stanley Morgan Jr., especially a week after having just 2 catches for season-low 2 catches for 31 yards. He comes back with 10 for 163 and 2. Good for him.
And I think after last week's Northwestern game, that might have been Scott Frost's biggest regret, that they should have gone to Stanley Morgan a little bit more. And, that fourth quarter when they were trying to run out the clock and finish the game up 7, maybe that play they just scored a touchdown on there, that could have been a play that you iced Northwestern on, and you would have had that win last week.
It was wide open.
Then maybe you're thinking about we could get to 6 wins at this point. In Nebraska 1-6 now, but 2-5, then next week 3-5. It would have a different feel. So that moment last week was a big learning lesson, and they took it to the field today.
How about defensively? We haven't talked. The offense, they have so many numbers, and rightfully so. They gained 659 yards, but defensively they played well at times, but still plenty to work on. I think.
Yeah, and I think the lack of depth showed in this game. Minnesota early on, when the adrenaline and the place was rocking, Nebraska had the edge. But as the game wore on, as Minnesota's offense gained momentum, and then they switched quarterbacks to an option guy.
I thought it was a big change in the game.
That really threw off Nebraska. We don't get to talk to Eric Chenander, but I would like to know how much they prepared for that option look, because they were really off balance by what Minnesota was bringing with this change in quarterbacks.
I agree with that 100%. They really gave a different dynamic. Now, moving ahead, we got Bethune-Cookman. This is the game that replaces the Akron game on the schedule. And, going into this week, I think everybody was like, oh, we wish we had a bye week. But maybe that's not the case now, because Nebraska can build some momentum winning games in back-to-back weeks.
Yeah, I think that's what it's all about right now. More than likely a team that's not going to go to a bowl game unless they win out down the stretch. So you just want to get momentum and build this culture of what you want to be. And this is another opportunity to get that momentum, to have 2 wins in a row, potentially, before you go out to Ohio State and play, obviously, a very good Ohio State team. So it's an opportunity, and I think the way they played today, that should really help the crowd for next week. I know there were a lot of questions. What kind of turnout are you going to see for an 11 a.m., game that was scheduled on the fly with Bethune-Cookman, I think we'll still see a pretty good turnout.
Yeah, Scott Frost saying when he was walking off the field, he was thinking to himself, this is what it's supposed to be like, and he was very, very complimentary to the Husker fans who gave him a standing ovation, and rightfully so, as the Huskers win their first game of the year, first game under Scott Frost. They will take on Bethune-Cookman next Saturday at 11 a.m.